My name is Chapendama. I'm going to be doing a talk on cybersecurity. It's not all doom and gloom, and just focusing on, roles in cybersecurity, roles in intelligence, and everything in between. So a bit about me. I studied computer science networks at the University of Hertfordshire, and I'm currently a senior software engineer in cyber and intelligence for Raytheon UK, based in Manchester. So Raytheon is a defense company, and we have a cloud capabilities team where I support their engineering efforts within cyber intelligence and space. Another role of mine is technology manager for a social enterprise called Foundervine, where we focus on ensuring that everyone has a fair chance at being a startup founder. My love of cybersecurity even falls into an advisory role for another startup called Cedia, where I'm advising on cybersecurity, their policies, and the governance of the organization. So my work experience actually wasn't in defense, cyber, or intelligence. So I studied computer science and I was focusing more on network engineering. But as I was doing my placement year at BlackBerry, that's when I sort of started realizing that cybersecurity is actually quite interesting. So I started switching from, being a network engineer, dev type of roles, more into cybersecurity. And that's where a company called Bulletproof gave me an opportunity to start working in their security operations center. And soon after that, I got offered a contract role at the university where I studied to build out one of their cyber platforms. And that's pretty much how I ended up transitioning from a network engineer and more into cyber. So this is always an interesting thing. So when I speak to people about careers in cybersecurity, what do people think we actually do? Right now, within defense, intelligence, people think either we're penetration testers or we work along those lines in dark rooms. And yeah, that's not actually the case. So even at Raytheon, we work in modern offices and we're focusing on cloud. And these are some of the tools and platforms that I've specialized in. So GCP, Google Cloud, Azure, Elasticsearch. So Elasticsearch, we use it, as a theme, more focusing around the security, monitoring, and logs. And we get onto containerization. So I sort of sit in between a cloud engineer, DevOps, and SRE, site reliability engineer. And what I wanted to, showcase is there's a wide range of skills. So cybersecurity can sit within cloud, can sit within infrastructure, can sit even within development. So no matter what sort of stream you're currently on, it is possible to get into cybersecurity. And are there jobs in this pandemic? Yes. So when we saw at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone had to go remote. And with that came a lot of businesses who misconfigured firewalls, who misconfigured VPNs. They were forced into going remote without having the necessary resources. And that's definitely had an impact in terms of the roles and the recruitment in cyber, because a lot of organizations now are on the cloud and they need people to be monitoring and deploying safe solutions. So in terms of the industry, yes, there is jobs. And what they are struggling with, so this came out from a government report, is finding the right talent who have the skills and the experience. So for a lot of people, there's many ways to get into cybersecurity, university being the most popular choice. Degree apprenticeships is something that started in the last, 5 years, being pushed actively by the government, and they're becoming quite popular. So even when I worked at Fujitsu, there were a couple of degree apprentices who were focusing on the cyber stream, and they were literally studying at uni for maybe 2 days whilst working full time in the organization. And it was never a case of they get given less work. They were doing the same work as we were. And yeah, boot camps is also another popular route. So boot camps from either coding, UI, UX, there's so many of them around now. It is a very interesting and good way to get into tech. And for a lot of people, it's now sort of opening and closing, or opening the barriers that some people have faced. And one of the things about cybersecurity, self-learning is very important. So getting certifications, you can also learn through hackathons and what are called bug bounties. So a bug bounty is, for example, Google does run a very lucrative one. If you find a problem or a bug that can be exploited in Chrome or any of the Google products, they will pay you. We've seen, I think in the last year, people being paid anything up from £30,000 to 150,000, depending on how severe that bug bounty is. YouTube is also another popular way to learn how to get into the field, cyber intelligence. And yeah, so if you're already working, a good and fun way to learn is via a secondment. So virtual internships, mentorship, finding people who can help you in your current role. So if you have a cyber team, it is worth speaking to them and finding out if they have any opportunities for you to shadow. And that's how you can start picking up on skills. When there's an incident, when something is going on, you can actually offer your input because you provide fresh eyes to a problem that they may not see. And what do careers in cyber and intelligence look like? So I'm going to use a case study, Stuxnet. So this was a computer worm that affected nuclear power plants in Iran in 2010. So what happened was 58% of the computers in Iran were infected by this one worm. And all this worm did in a high level was it would ask every time it was plugged, a USB was plugged into a computer, are you a Siemens and then a specific computer that only runs in nuclear power plants? And when the computer says, no, I'm not, it would just hide away. And it would continually spread till one day an engineer is suspected to have put in a USB. And when this worm went on the network, it asked every device, are you this specific computer? Turns out it was. So the impact that's had on cybersecurity is massive because as we now work, even the MacBook I'm using now doesn't have USB ports. This is, as technology moved on, cybersecurity is usually a big push as people start realizing that, oh, this can actually happen. And that's where a lot of careers have come out of it. So USBs are now seen as dangerous. People have developed what's called a rubber ducky. It's a USB that can suck the power out of your laptop and then push it back to actually make the laptop blow up. So in this world now, because of cybersecurity, we're now seeing sort of, I guess, a drastic change and careers are popping up to help defend. So when we think of the national critical infrastructure, in America recently, there was a hack on and ransomware on what's called their national pipeline for gas. And as we saw in the UK, when we had a fuel crisis, people were panic buying like there's no tomorrow. Similar thing in America, people started panic buying petrol, panic buying everything they can. And this is an effect of one cyber attack. So when we now start looking at how the world is moving, we definitely need more people transitioning into cyber to help defend from these attacks. So if you're interested, where do you actually begin? Practice makes perfect in cybersecurity. So if you're currently working in cloud or in as a developer or any other field, you have to sort of put time aside to practice, whether it's an hour a day on YouTube, watching a tutorial, actually trying out the techniques being used. If you're interested in cloud and you're working with AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, start looking at the security streams. They help you so much learn. And when you get given, let's say, a sandbox and you actually try some of the configurations and building some of the tools, it definitely helps. And when it now comes to interview, having that practical experience, even if it's in a sandbox environment, is very crucial. So the government is pushing, I think people might have saw the ads that your next career move could be in cyber. The government is actively pushing for people to switch to cybersecurity. So there's so many different streams. If you want to work in the intelligence sector, go towards, I guess, the MI5, MI6, that kind of field. They also have schemes where they're trying to convert people from the traditional, I guess, engineering roles into cyber streams. And this is the most perfect one, networking. So obviously you came here today, you're networking amongst your colleagues, your tribe, so many different people in different industries. Network, get to know people, even at work. It's very easy for a role to actually be put out and someone just recommends a friend and yeah, they get interviewed and get it. So it never actually makes it out. So having people who speak for you in rooms you aren't in is such a wonderful and I guess a blessing in this modern career world. So I think, yeah, if you have any questions, I think, yeah, let's open it up. There's a chat but yeah, this is, I guess, a quick introduction to cybersecurity. Oh, so what do I find most interesting within cybersecurity? It's the different challenges. So today it could be someone misconfigured a rule, as we saw with the Facebook one. When you first see the alerts, it looks like an attack. And I remember, I think one of the first incidents I dealt with, we were monitoring a firewall, and one of the engineers on the night shift accidentally blocked our internal firewall. And it looked like an attack because all our systems were basically blocking each other and attacking each other. And as we now start trying to do a deep dive, trying to figure out what's going on, we have customers calling, they can't access it. That intensity, and then as you figure it out and you now start fixing things, it can be quite a good high. The next question, which qualifications would you recommend to get into cybersecurity? So there's different streams. It's worth trying to find out what you're actually interested in. So for some people, hacking is their bread and butter. They love breaking into systems. You can start looking at penetration testing. You can start looking at careers or even services such as HackerBox. That way you get given dummy systems that you just have to hack into. And a lot of companies will look at your HackerBox profile and know that, yeah, you're really good at this. How have you dealt with widescale hacks exploitations? So when I worked for a university, so University of Hertfordshire, it's a lot of businesses get attacked every day and you have contingencies in place. So one of the cool things that we would do is honeypots. So studying honeypots, we would deploy honeypots and then actually study how attackers are trying to attack. And that was so cool because then you can now start seeing that, oh, this is the attack method that they used. And we can then go back and build our defenses. And how did you jump up the career ladder? So for me, I'd say definitely changing jobs. So I like interesting projects. So I always look for jobs where the projects are interesting, and that's definitely helped. So moving from Fujitsu to defense was a completely new field, which means I get to learn new things. So I went from, I guess, an infrastructure, working on infrastructure projects, to now being in defense and intelligence. And I don't even know what my next move will be, but it will probably be in a completely different field. And is it common to work overtime, antisocial hours? So it depends on your role. So if you're in a security operations center, yes, you tend to work shift patterns and then you end up being on call. But for most sort of cloud engineer, security analyst roles, you just work the standard times. So right now at Raytheon, for example, I finish at 1:30 on a Friday because, yeah, we get time to do training and it's good. The biggest threat at the moment in the cybersecurity space is, I guess, national state-sponsored actors. So this is, I guess, the hacking capabilities of Russia, China, America, even England. It's such a big threat because it affects, I guess, civilians. So when something goes wrong, like the gas pipeline in America, it's civilians who feel it the most. And yeah, have you ever been to DefCon or any events similar? Yes, there's local DefCons that happen around, I guess, the UK. So there was one recently that I couldn't actually go to it in Liverpool because I'm obviously based in the north. And yeah, I'd love to go to the next one. And I know there's always similar types in London and around Manchester. Have you ever been questioned by an interviewer about job hopping? How do you get around this? So I tend to spend minimum 12 months in a role, and then I start sort of, I guess, looking. When they ask, it's because of the nature of the work that we do, it's kind of project based. So when I finished building the security system at the University of Hertfordshire, the role that followed was monitoring. And I enjoyed the architecture side of things. So I wanted to go up into a more architecture kind of position. And that's how I ended up as platforms lead at Fujitsu, where I was deploying all these applications. So even when I then moved on to Raytheon, I was more interested now in cloud security and actually getting my cloud certifications. So if you're showing progression, it shouldn't matter if you're job hopping. Another thing to also point out, one to actually progress, whether it's salary wise, you sometimes have to leave. If people aren't realizing your worth now, they'll probably never will. So go and interview, even speak to colleagues, find out, or not colleagues, but people around your field that you know, like me and some of my friends I graduated with, we always know like what someone's earning, what they're interviewing for. So you know, like, oh, am I actually being earned what the market's paying? Boot camps for cybersecurity, I would definitely recommend Sadia. They run quite a lot of programs for Black women in tech. And yeah, just just keep coming to these events. Zoomtoss are doing great things like connecting people, and yeah. Can you tell us more about your work at Foundervine? So Foundervine is social enterprise where we focus on building programs to get more people into tech. So one of the programs, like an upcoming one that I'm really excited about, and we're working with Zoomtoss as well, it's how to build a website in 5 weeks. So we find experts, people, leaders in the field to deliver these programs for people in local communities. So this one that we're working with is Lambeth in London. And as you saw with I guess the Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram downtime, a lot of people have marketplaces or websites just running on these social media platforms. So we want to start getting more people to build their own websites and control their own, I guess, features. And yeah, so that's why I sort of love working for Foundervine, because we get to work on these interesting projects with cool people. And how do I ensure my application is secure across all levels? That depends on what, I guess, modern. Are you updating like your repos? Is everything up to date? And another way to start, I guess, focusing on the security side of your applications is to do your own testing. So start looking at penetration testing that you can do yourself. So there's an operating system called Kali that you can install, and it can help you. The part of the job that I enjoy is, I guess, yeah, just learning new challenges. And in terms of what I don't enjoy, um, it can be quite taxing, sort of mentally. So when you think of the learning curve, sometimes you have to learn something relatively quick. So sometimes we find out that there's a bit of malware and there isn't actually a fix. So you have to build your own defenses. But we work in teams, and that's one of the best parts of it. So it's never just on you, it's up to the team, and there's always an expert. Oh, it wasn't a website, it was Kali Linux. So it's an operating system. And on there, you can find so many different penetration testing tools. And salary requirements, it depends on the industry and field, but cloud, on average, for a cloud engineer, you're looking at about 40 and above. And when you start sort of, I guess, going being cloud security, yeah, you start with about 2 years experience, you're looking at 50K and above. And yeah, that seems to be all the questions. But yeah, if there's anything or you need help at job applications, whatever, yeah, just drop me a message on LinkedIn, Twitter, and I'll definitely be happy to answer whatever I can.